and of reaching Africa. So it was that 5 nautical miles out from Lanzarote, with conditions against them and to the anger of all aboard, the Hobie Cats were forced to turn back.
Due to the weather conditions, before the race, before the event, the decision was called that some of the support vessels, the support ribs, didn't want to go. And so as a result, we had to turn around and go back in. We just didn't have the support for the safety. We were probably the best suited vessel on the water, more so than the kite surfers and for the windsurfers, because it was a perfect amount of wind for us. And once you're out of the land chop, the Atlantic swell, is not a threat to us at all. And we could have gone, but without the safety, you can't go. You're crazy.
No, that's fun, but a little bit strong, Fun but strong. Close to the island. It's already so strong if you get further out. Not funny then. With this condition, maybe the people which are meant to help you need help.
At the end of the day, we said security was the first priority, and there wasn't going to be the backup, so we had to turn back. But afterwards, there was no bitter feelings.
I'd say there's a good 30 knots of wind out there on the gusts, 30 knots, maybe a little bit more from time to time, but best of luck to the windsurfers that are going for it.
Of the 9 sailing craft that left Costa de Guise, just 2 windsurfers remained. Both capable athletes within their field, they were making steady progress, if slightly behind schedule. But the weather was about to claim its next victim, the man with whom it had all started, whom 10 years before had looked out to sea and dreamt of crossing to Africa. 8 miles outside Lanzarote, Tiller was facing up to giving up. Trusting the forecast, he had chosen a smaller sail than he now needed. Ruing his decision and struggling to keep afloat, he finally accepted the help he needed. With Zodiacs and support craft turning back and the future of the race now hanging in the balance, Tiller goes to Il Morro to speak with its owner, Are, whom had his own concerns. The delayed start in the morning would now mean arriving in Africa well after nightfall and into an unfamiliar, unmarked and very shallow port.
We have to be realistic, and I would say 8-9 knots will be realistic.
Everyone told me, and you do and you won't go all the way, but that's no problem. With me, you will talk Monday.
For Tiller, there would be no turning back. Though the elements might have put paid to his own attempt to sail across, there was no way now that a yacht laden with aid for the Tafayan people would do the same. There was one competitor, however, for whom the race was still very much on. Out to sea and disappearing into the horizon was Ben Atkinson. Over 20 nautical miles from Lanzarote and well on the way to the Sahara Desert, the last remaining competitor in the dash was making progress. Ben Atkinson had no intention of waiting around. Single-minded and resolute, this was his chance to cross between continents, alone and unaided. But what Ben didn't know was that back on Il Morro, the weather report coming in wasn't looking good, and the wind further on was starting to drop.
It's northwest, 5, intervals of 6 or 7 knots. It's finished.
At the end of the day, it was Tiller's call to pull me in, but having been on the Zodiac an hour afterwards, I realised that there's no way we'd have made it. There just wasn't enough wind in the centre.
Benny, you've got 2 more minutes to row off and you're on your own, boy.
I was furious. I was just frustrated. You've once you started something like this, you don't want to stop. I'm barely going on the board. Barely getting the board going. But I'm just, always assume, well, maybe it could pick up. What if the wind picks up? The worst scenario would have been for me if I'd stopped, put all the kit on the Zodiac. 10 minutes later, another 5 knots of wind. I'm not the fastest windsurfer in the world. I'm not the best windsurfer in the world. I'm not here to try and pretend I am. So it's not about individual glory. It's about trying to get everyone enthusiastic.
Skipper Nino Navarro had taken the decision to carry on across. An experienced yachtsman and a former Spanish windsurf champion, there was no doubting Il Morro would be in safe hands.
We are on the way down to Tarfaya, 162 degrees, reaching more or less 6.7, 6.8 knots. At the moment, the wind is a little bit low,
We are fine, we are set on the course, we are going all the way down, lovely, smoothly, perfect.
As luck would have it, Il Moro finally picks up some more wind, and under full sail, with Nino at the helm, makes its way towards Tafaya.
Well, it's almost gone to plan. We're here, we made it to Morocco, not quite the way we wanted to make it. To be honest with you, it was a bit of a chaotic start this morning. I was there exactly on the start line. I don't know what happened, to be honest with you, after that. The next thing I knew, I turned around and there was no one there. The Zodiacs were helping someone else. The catamarans were everywhere. Not exactly as we wanted it. You know, great to be here. Everyone was really, really friendly right from the start when we pulled up on the Moye, and so we've just been had to crawl our way through a huge crowd of kids on the beach, all screaming about all our equipment and pulling at us, and so we've just arrived here for Moroccan tea and almonds. Fantastic.
Adrenaline was high on both sides. For many of these children, this was their first glimpse of life outside Tafaya. For others, though, life seemed to go on as normal, oblivious to their strange Western guests. Despite being one of the most isolated towns in the Sahara Desert, the Tafayan people are some of the most social you can come across. So few visitors come here that when they do, they're treated as royalty. Open-armed, smiling and inquisitive, it seemed they wanted to hear about everything and everyone. Unaware of all of this were the skipper and crew of Il Moro, who after 11 hours at sea, and to the relief for a few of the less seasoned sailors, finally caught a glimpse of Tafaya's only noticeable landmark, Dar Mar, the castle built into the sea.
Well, we actually departed from Costa de Gizi at 12, and we arrived here about 10. Not too bad. Not too bad. We couldn't come a little bit early if we used more sails to. The wind didn't blow exactly the prediction. The weather forecast said the wind blow more, but didn't blow so much. But we enjoyed. We had a good time. And we are right here. We are in the harbor. Perfect.
The first feeling I felt when I got there just felt completely humble. There's such a massive difference between the cultures. Just an amazing feeling from the people there of generosity and just open, welcoming us with open arms.
Despite the humidity during the day, the desert temperature can drop dramatically at night. The competitors had experienced their first night in the Sahara Desert under Bedouin tents built and provided by their Moroccan hosts, and it was a night's sleep they wouldn't forget easily. Tafaya and its people may not have a great deal, but all it does have, it seemed, was being used to accommodate their guests. Isolated at the very edge of the Western Sahara, with a population of just 1,500 people, Tafaya is known as the town without neighbours, the nearest being over 1,000 kilometres to the south. Under constant threat from being swallowed up by the shifting sands, these people make their living out of the only fertile field they have, the sea. Just as the continental divide had been breached, so too had the cultural one. The previous night had been a unique insight into Moroccan life that none of the competitors would forget, and so too, it seemed, the Moroccans. Despite the success, there was one Western tradition that had threatened to spoil the party, one that seems to blight relations wherever we travel in the globe.
We were all actually sitting down together, dignitaries, local people, us guys, really waiting for a banquet which was being prepared for us to be served. Unfortunately, somebody brought 4 big